What's the adult version of finding out Santa is not real? That your good health isn't a given. It can be gone in an instant. It's the greatest entitlement until you lose it. Had a social work professor who used to say the disability community is the largest stigmatized community of which anyone can become a member of at any time. And half the time they'll be told they were lucky, too. More like every time. At 29 I had a brain bleed almost kill me. I spent 3 months in the hospital and as a result I'm now disabled because my vision is effed and I have seizures. People always tell me how lucky I am. I can't help but scoff and think how lucky it would have been if that had never happened and my life never got ruined just at its prime. I'm 22 and trying to get on disability and supplemental security income. While it is going to be amazing if I can have a source of income from the government, there isn't a day of my life that I wouldn't rather be able to work and provide for myself under my own power and muscles. Yeah, I tore a bit of my spinal cord just walking around normally and now have been bedbound for 3 years. I'm 23, upside down face. To all those that haven't yet experienced something like this. Small scale, I'd say enjoy when you can breathe through your nose, or move your arm unencumbered. As soon as you lose something like that, even temporarily, it feels like a lifetime of regret. Why didn't I enjoy breathing before? I wish I could breathe. I was lucky/unlucky enough to find this out in childhood. My heart is literally broken, works at a much lower capacity. It means that if I don't exercise to maintain it, I could get a heart attack, and be dead within an hour. It also means if I exercise too much and overexhausted it, I could get a heart attack, and be dead within an hour. Take your good health seriously. If you don't, it's going to bite you harder than you could imagine. I had 48 years of good health, hadn't been to the doctors in 13 years, overnight I was in ICU for 6 months. Necrotizing pancreatitis. Becoming aware of how wrong and uneducated most adults actually are. Becoming aware of how terrible average reasoning/logic ability is and how most can't differentiate that from emotion hit me a lot harder. I used to think education was the main issue. Nothing is more terrifying for me than feeling like I am the smartest person in the room because I am a goddamned idiot. Everyone's answer here is dark or existential, so I'll just put this out there. I finally went to Universal Studios as an adult a few years back and found out the old Nickelodeon Studios building has been turned into a generic, gray building with no life behind it. I was crushed. Edit, referring to the one in Florida, of course. Keenan and Kel was filmed in front of a live audience at Nickelodeon Studios, at Universal Studios, Orlando, Florida. Wasn't that the bit at the end of every episode? Same here. I was 33 the first time I had the opportunity to go to Universal Studios. My mom never had the money to take me as a kid, and when I saw the building, went into some sort of weird, existential crisis. I just want to be a contestant on Legends of the Hidden Temple. But I'd settle for guts. This is, by far, the saddest comment yet. To be fair, most of the Redditors who read this will have no idea what you're talking about. I saw a picture a little while back. Super disappointing to see it like that. Mail is no longer fun to look at when it's all bills and no longer birthday/Christmas/ etc. Cards with money. I've stopped looking at my mail 2 years ago. Life is much better. If it's IRS related, I'll find out electronically, but I'm on top of all of that government BS. I don't even get mail anymore unless it's a package or a birthday card. I moved to Japan a decade ago and have no official connections in my home country, not even a bank account anymore. The few billed services I have in Japan are set up to auto-pay from my account. The only non-package, not from family mail I can remember receiving, addressed to me and not my wife, in the last 6 months was a postcard from immigration telling me my new visa and ID were ready, and a notice from my bank commanding me to send them a copy of said ID to prove I'm still in the country and not a criminal using the account to launder money from overseas. Presumably they'd close the account if I didn't provide the ID. How's life in Japan? Genuinely curious. Do you mean life for me in general, or what the pandemic is like here? No, I mean in general. Life is pretty much the same except 99%, of everything is in a different language. Everything looks like you're in Japan instead of someplace else, the food is different and there is very little multiculturalism to speak of. But besides that, your day-to-day isn't all that different. Moving here is like moving into a furnished apartment or house. The layout and contents differ from your old place, but at the end of the day a room is a room and a chair is a chair. As a foreigner, there are certain things that can be problematic or stress-inducing if you let them. For one, you'll always be a foreigner no matter how hard you try to act like the locals. People will generally assume you are clueless and dysfunctional regarding most things Japan until, but sometimes even when, shown otherwise. It can be hard if not impossible to make real, meaningful friendships with Japanese people. I've lost count of how many times I've heard other foreigners complain that friends they'd had for many years suddenly ghosted them when the friendship became less convenient. Some people will open up to and let in a foreign friend, but most won't. It's just the way of things. The sheer amount of paperwork and rule following and it can't be helped attitude that pervades society at all levels can be frustrating. And although most developed countries are more or less gerontocracies, in Japan it's quite pronounced. A government and set of rules by and for the elderly. Some images of Japan I had that were dispelled after coming here. Japan is actually not all that high-tech. Some of their consumer goods are, but the infrastructure is aging and many of the ways in which things are done are stubbornly old-fashioned, paperwork, faxes, plus, stamps, many things not having electronic options, 90s-era websites etc. Head out to the countryside and it can be like jumping backwards in time 60 years, that's where I live. The Japanese aren't a race of selfless gentlefolk. There is much emphasis placed by society on keeping things smooth and inoffensive and so the appearance of politeness exists, but it's mostly a show. The Japanese are as human as anyone else and they certainly have their share of douchebags, Karens, creeps and buttholes. It's not super expensive. Sure, if you want a nice apartment in central Tokyo you'll pay through the nose for it, but that's no different than any other large city with lots of jobs. If you live in the suburbs or another city elsewhere in the country the cost of living is pretty unremarkable. I live in a small city in a rural prefecture and a lot of things here are way cheaper than in Tokyo or back home. Land and houses are cheap, food can be inexpensive etc. Things I like that are partly responsible for me not wanting to move back home: the ease of living here as an introvert. Introversion and introverted traits are prized, which is the opposite of back home, the safety and relative cleanliness compared to back home. There is literally nowhere in Japan I'd be afraid to walk at night, whereas I've been mugged on a main street in my hometown, Canada, not even the US, hot springs, mountains everywhere, timely transit, food, being left to my own affairs petty, but it's nice being taller than almost everyone else. At 5 feet 11 inches I'm above average in Canada but don't really qualify as tall. Since I'm a bit of a wuss, being mugged can do that to you. It's nice not to feel intimidated by anyone around you. That said, younger people are getting taller. The days of Japanese being comparatively short are numbered. Overall it's a place to live with things that suck and things that are cool. Lots of foreigners here complain endlessly about life in Japan and a good number of people get burned out and move back home. There aren't a huge number of old lifers, although you do meet them. The number will grow since not many people moved here before the 80s and there are plenty of content residents like myself, even if they seem hard to find. Japanese society is facing many challenges at the moment and it feels like no one really has any good answers yet. Young people are bummed out and the economy is stagnant. Much change is needed but no one wants to be the one to start it. But that's a subject for another time. This got a little too long. Anything specific you'd like to ask, feel free. This was enlightening. It sounds like Japan is absolutely not for me. That's what most people eventually decide, it seems. Unfortunately, a lot come over here with false impressions from anime, movies and internet memes and wind up disappointed. Japan can be an exceedingly dull place. But if you like dull and want dull without other people giving you a hard time for it, you could do worse. LOL. Even I, as a super anime fan, know enough that anime equals life in Japan. That's like if someone said the US was like Futurama or American Dad. I thoroughly enjoyed this comment. It felt like I was there with you for a few moments. Thanks for posting. Careful with that. I have a tendency to go long between checking mail, due to all bills being on internet. Well, a few years ago I went to an urgent care clinic and I paid my bill and thought I was done. A few months later I checked the mail, And I have a notice that I have a $42 bill about to get sent to a collection agency. They never bothered to call me, and I know they had the right number on file. Turns out they sent something to a lab and it was an additional fee I had no idea about. I remember as a kid riding my bike every day to the post office to get the mail for my mom just because I wanted to check the mail. I thought it was awesome. Now I realize how much debt we were in, and it probably killed her getting mail every day and not having a day of not knowing what bill was waiting for her. It probably brightened the situation a lot knowing her kid was out trying to help in the best way he could. Getting your first adult paycheck and realizing that you can barely scrape by. Oh, the dreams you had. And then looking around and realizing there are 8 of us and 1 manager. So how does upward mobility work? You leave for a place where all 9 people are getting paid more, mostly. Becoming an adult and having health problems like a sore back. I thought that only happened when you're 50 plus. My knees gave out at 18. I had to accept that I would never again have a well-functioning body. F0 Army, 2020 kicked off with a gout attack in my big toe. I'm 26. I was 33 when I threw my back out from a sneeze. The following night I slept on the floor because I couldn't make it back from the bathroom. WTF. I'm 30 and was recently diagnosed with epilepsy, just had a series of seizures on the first. My neurologist just suggested a new medication, but my insurance hasn't gotten back to me on whether or not they'll cover it, and if they don't it's $1,100 a month. Working hard but not getting a raise or promotion. I had that. Thanks to the company cracking down on overtime, it was hard to get shifts covered if someone called in sick. There were a lot of times where I was doing 2 or even 3 people's jobs on a daily basis. Did I get a raise or even recognition for my hard work? Of course not. If this wasn't so common, I'd ask if we worked at the same place. Even if a manager had said something like, "Hey, thanks for taking on so much extra work. We really appreciate the help," I wouldn't have minded so much. But there was no recognition that I was being called on to do anything out of the ordinary. I was noticed. The supervisor liked my work enough that he made up a position and called it simply lead. Where I worked, I should have been production coordinator. But by making up this position, he could expand my responsibilities without paying me more. So both sides of it suck. That's just plain evil. To add, working, unpaid, greater than 5%, more time/effort to earn a 5%, bonus is wasting/devaluing your time. Same thing goes for a 10%, or 20%, bonus. Or to put it another way, the only way getting a bonus is worth your time is if you have to put in less hours than it pays out. Otherwise it's not a bonus, it's just more work. Or, what if I work 20%, more time and never get a bonus at all? Sounds like a demotion to me. Realizing that $100 is actually not a lot of money. Skeptical. Having $1,000 isn't a lot. Owing $1,000 is a lot. This is the most terrifying and true thing I've seen in a while. For real. Owing $1,000 feels like owing $1 million when you don't have it. What's owing $1 million feel like? Owing $1 billion. No, that's very different. There's actually an old saying in finance that goes something like, owe the bank $100,000 and it's your problem. Owe the bank $100 million and it's the bank's problem. Edit. Thanks/user Tommy for the correct phrasing. Reddit link. If you owe the bank $100,000, that's your problem. If you owe the bank $100 million, that's the bank's problem. I recently moved out on my own and it is strange spending hundreds of dollars a month on just food. I remember the days when it was a huge deal to have more than $100. Edit. For those wondering what I am eating, I have many dietary restrictions, so I have to spend more on food. I can't eat most cheap foods like ramen. I cook all of my meals and end up spending on average about $80 a week. Until you want to spend it on something non-essential. Then it's right back to being a lot of money. Realizing the chicken HR is the company's pal, not yours. I got thrown into an HR management position at a stupidly young age, 23. I honestly and earnestly thought it was my job to take care of the employees. I approached any issue from the how can I help this person perspective. Then I had to accompany a manager to an unemployment hearing for someone they had fired. A manager who had praised this former employee constantly was doing everything he could to make a previously valued employee get nothing. That's when I realized my view of HR didn't line up with the actual point of HR. Oh dang, you were that guy, such a bummer to have the realization when you're still in the position. Yeah, it was. It was 15 years ago and I haven't worked in HR since then, though, laughing out loud. It's called human resources because you are supposed to make humans a resource. Like coal. Now shut up and burn, we've got useless things to make and sell to people who don't want them. HR means human resources. It means you need to treat people like a resource. Employees are like shovels or other tools. You use and abuse them until they go dull or break and you throw them away with the rest of the garbage. That's what HR means. Our HR team got renamed and branded to People and Culture. For the most part, they are about the people and culture. Some great things have come in, such as living wage for employees and extended to all contractors, additional paid parental leave with an ease back into work on part-time hours on full-time income, additional insurances, focus on fair pay between genders, and also role allocation and more. Edit, spelling. It doesn't make sense for a company to create an entire department with the intention of using it to protect the workers from the company, does it? Realizing that HR is not your friend, in fact they'll become your arch nemesis if crap hits the fan. Especially when the solution is fire everyone. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.